Hi, and welcome back to The Hatch. I'm Rosie Murphy.
And I'm Sammy Roth, and this is the podcast where we rewatch Lost week by week and talk about it.
This week we've got Season 1, Episode 3, Tabula Rasa. We've also got more from director Jack Bender. We talked with him last week, and we've got a few more minutes of that interview coming your way.
So stay tuned.
So, just to recap, our first flashback episode, it's all about Kate. We learned at the end of the pilot that Kate was the person in handcuffs on the plane who was being brought back to the U.S. by a U.S. Marshal. In this episode, we learn about where she was right before she was arrested. She was sort of working on a farm and trying to be anonymous, and then the person she was staying with turned her in.
And meanwhile, in the present, we've got the drama with the Marshal on the island. Jack pulled the piece of metal out of him in the pilot, and now he's not doing very well, and Jack's trying to figure out how to save him. Can he save him? Should they put him out of his misery? And Kate is sort of reacting to all of that.
Every week we open the show with hot takes with our gut reactions to the episode. We really do want y'all to send us your hot takes. We have a phone number, 9546-DHARMA. Goes to a Google Voice account. If you send us your thoughts, we'll play them on the show.
Okay, I'm so ready for this. My hot take is that I do not care what Kate did. And I remember feeling this way the first time I watched it as well, that it actually, I got to a point, I think, by the end of the first season or even into the second season where I'd forgotten that we didn't know what she did.
That's right, because they set it up like it was something really,
They really did,
really
and it's not until like halfway through the second season where they finally do the What Kate Did episode.
That's right.
And I remember seeing that the first time thinking like, oh, did we not already know this?
Well, because there was so much. Because you learn that, like, she was a bank robber, and then you learn that...
After she had become a criminal.
Right, and then you go back a little further and learn about, like, how she was in that car crash with her childhood best friend, and then you go even further back and learn about her family, and...
Right.
Eventually I think I just forgot, like, what the origin was of her criminal life.
And so watching Tabula Rasa, where it's, they set it up as this dramatic mystery, it just... we talked about last week how Kate does a really good job at sort of hiding that she's this dangerous fugitive and sort of acting, she doesn't know how to use a gun and she's acting a little bit helpless at times. But I guess I have trouble envisioning her as someone I really need to be scared of. And a lot of the drama seems to be about, the Marshal is so worried about her. Jack needs to find her and not believe her and can't trust her. And what is she going to do to everyone? And, too genuine and
yeah, she won me. She had already won me over.
Yes.
By this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What's your hot take, Rosie?
There is, throughout the show, a really, really weird tension between Michael and Sun.
Yeah.
And they start that in this episode when Michael accidentally walks in on her while she's bathing. And they sort of have a relationship in that Michael's the first person to know she speaks English first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're definitely become friends.
Yeah, and there's this weird tension between Michael and Jin. And it just felt, I don't know, the scene where Michael accidentally walks in on her just felt like I was really uncomfortable watching that, because I could feel how uncomfortable I guess both the characters were, and
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
And there's also the moment in the pilot, which I remembered watching the pilot recently, where Michael goes up to them on the beach and Jin
tells her to button her top button.
Yeah. So I don't know. They definitely didn't go down the road of like, is there going to be a romance between them?
Right. But they set it up like there's going to be all this sexual tension.
You're right.
And it's just never resolved.
And there isn't even in that moment any sexual tension.
No, it's just uncomfortable.
So we've done hot takes.
Yes.
Let's do favorite characters.
Okay. My favorite character is Sawyer.
Ooh, in a Kate episode.
Yeah. Because this is the first time when we start to see Sawyer come out of his shell a little bit. Because like we talked about in the pilot, he is just an asshole from the beginning. And this is where we start to see him become the Sawyer that we know. So he starts with the nicknames, right? He calls Kate Freckles. He calls Hurley Lardo or whatever. He loots. He's looting.
Right, stealing from the dead.
What are you doing in here?
Trick or treat, same as you.
You're looting.
You say potato.
What's in the bag?
Booze, smokes, a couple of Playboys. What's in yours?
Medicine.
Well, just about sums it up, don't it?
You do this back home, too? Steal from the dead?
Brother, you gotta wake up and smell the gold crap here. Rescue ain't coming.
In a way that's kind of twisted and dickish, for lack of a better word. He's genuine. Like,
that's true.
You can't fault him for that.
I will say that since you brought up Sawyer, in addition to that, I enjoyed the moment at the end of the episode where he's the one that pulls the trigger on the gun to shoot.
Oh, you enjoyed that?
Not enjoy. That's not the part that I'm building up to the
Okay,
part that I
okay.
enjoyed. I enjoyed. Gosh, this is going to sound bad too. So when Sawyer comes out, and Jack realizes what he did, and then you hear the marshal coughing again, which is a horrible, horrible moment, which I did not enjoy. But then there's that look on Sawyer's face when he starts to
Yeah.
realize what he did and that he screwed it up and that he made the guy suffer more. And there's just this look of abject horror.
Mm-hmm.
What did I do?
It's humanizing, yeah.
It really is. To me, that's one of the first moments where you start to sympathize with Sawyer a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, Saeed throws him the fruit, and he kind of smiles, and he's like, "Oh, that was really nice." Yeah, to me, that was the first bit of redemption for Sawyer.
Yeah, I agree. Who do you want to talk about?
Well, I'll go with Kate because
You kind of have to.
it's a
yeah.
Kate episode. I thought it was really fascinating that she cared so much for the marshal. The guy who, clearly had arrested her and chased her down in Australia, and
he's kind of like sadistic
yeah,
about it.
Like he's torturing her the whole time.
Yeah.
Right, but then she, she doesn't want to see him suffering, and at first you kind of think like, oh, does she just want to kill him so that he doesn't tell
Right.
people what she did? But then you start to realize like, oh no, she just like cares about the guy a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I think there is an element of like good riddance to this guy because he's been chasing her for years, right? And we find that out later that I think there might have been part of that Kate just wanted to put it to an end.
Maybe.
Because she has that conversation with Jack at the end of the episode where he says like, I don't care what you did, everybody gets a new life on this
I
island.
want to suffer.
Right. And we also see in one of the last things the marshal asks her is, what were you going to tell me on the plane? And she says, I want to make sure.
Right.
I wanted you to make sure that Ray Mullen got his 23 grand.
What, the guy who ratted you out?
He had a hell of a mortgage.
You really are one of a kind.
But yeah, again, we see like good at heart Kate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another reason why I don't buy her as a dangerous criminal
Yeah,
either.
Same. Yeah.
I think that Kate would have made a great hero of the show. I've read in news articles and whatnot that there was a version of the pilot where Jack was supposed to die at the end, and Kate would have been, like the main character from that point on. And I sort of understand from a selling a TV show perspective why they didn't go that route, but I would have loved to watch that show as well. Want to do some hindsight?
Yeah. So in thinking about Jack and in thinking about this prolonged, like, ugly struggle with trying to save the marshal, I was thinking about how big hospital shows were in the early and mid 2000s. Like, do you remember how many House was huge at this time?
Big fan of House.
Grey's Anatomy was huge. ER had just ended.
Bones.
Right. Oh, Bones was on. Scrubs being a comedy, but Scrubs was sort of in the zeitgeist. Like, hospital shows were a thing. And I don't think I'm really reaching here, but like, I wonder if some of this stuff, some of these like really seemingly unnecessarily graphic and detailed medical plot lines didn't come out of that.
That
the prominence
could
they
be.
gave to Jack.
I don't know. It's an interesting choice to make the hero a doctor. I mean, you wouldn't normally think of the sort of action star as, the guy in the operating room. At least I wouldn't.
In this case, I don't think it's that interesting a choice because they're alone on like, again, in terms of like, who do you want on your island? You want a doctor. You want, I don't know what other skills you need. You probably want John Locke. Like you want a hunter,
Right.
you want to be able to.
You want
fulfill
someone
those
who can
basic
fix a
needs.
radio.
Yes. And Jack is, doctor's
That's
definitely
true.
one of those, but I was,
So I have another thing.
okay.
My hindsight thing is that I remember the first time I watched this when Saeed in this episode makes the point about, satellites can take pictures. They need to know where to look.
Oh yeah. And he says like, Charlie says like, they can see your license plate from space. And Saeed says, if only we were all wearing license plates. Or yeah.
Which is a good line.
Yeah.
I remember watching that scene the first time and just the first few episodes in general, thinking that it was kind of unbelievable that nobody would find them. But since then, there was Malaysia Air 370.
That's right.
Which is totally this situation where the plane, for whatever reason, seems to have gone totally off course, which is what happens in the plot of Lost. And then because they don't know where to look, they can't find it. And
Yeah.
and that just makes this so much more believable to me, that if a
Totally.
plane just, went off course, that you wouldn't be able to find it. Because I definitely was on, whoever it was having that conversation with, say it was a Charlie, or, of thinking like, yeah, they can take pictures of license plates. Why can't they figure out where our plane went? But now I kind of get it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know.
Should we go to Jack Bender?
Yeah, we're going to hear a little bit more from director Jack Bender. If you weren't here with us last week, Jack Bender is a director who directed not Tabula Rasa, right? But
should
also
probably look that
Walkabout,
up.
which we'll be talking about next week. Sammy sat down with him at his home in LA, and we are going to hear a little bit more from him right now.
I know you weren't involved in the pilot, but I remember reading somewhere that the original concept was that you thought Jack was going to be the protagonist of this show, and then he gets killed by the monster at the end, and then Kate is the lead. Does that sound right to you, or familiar?
No, but I do know that in the original version of the pilot, and I don't know if this might have been the first draft Damon and JJ wrote, they killed the doctor
Oh.
because they said we can't.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking
We
about.
can't let the doctor survive. It's too easy. You got to kill the guy who everyone thinks is going to save them. And then, of course, when Matt Fox became the doctor,
Right.
they weren't going to kill him.
Right.
Not because, just because he was so great. So I think that's what you're referring to. And
I think so.
the myth has that that's true, yeah.
Well, I guess the reason I was curious about that, and maybe this is something you can speak to, is that Kate is a really compelling character, but I do kind of wonder, she seems like she's overshadowed by Jack to me in a lot of ways, that she's sort of always the second in command, and I like that she gets to shoot the man in black at the end and take that role, but I do kind of wonder what you think might have been different if she had been in charge, or if she had been the head of the group, how that might have played out for her.
I don't really know. I know that, Evie as a neophyte actress, and who Evie is, was so brilliant as Kate, that I don't know that we ever talked about. I don't think she ever complained or questioned her role in the show, as like, why am I the woman who's always, I'm not barefoot and pregnant in the cave. Kate was very, very active.
No, I don't mean to take away from that.
No, I know,
Yeah.
no, but she was the first one up those trees. Not only Kate Evie, but the character. And I also think that the love story between Jack and Kate was a big deal in the show, a lot of the heart of the show. And I remember toward the end, might have been the second to last season, when they stop at a tree and they're going somewhere, the whole group, and he stops and something, she said, why did you want me to go with this group or something? And he just says, and Matt played it so subtly, because I love you. And he just like walks away, and it's like, oh my God. And the impact of that moment was really strong because of what was between them and what was always between those characters.
You mentioned Jack and Kate and how important
Yeah.
the romance was. So Jack and Kate, were they always intended to end up together, or was that something that was ever open to debate for you guys?
Well, we went. I know there were different scenarios at different times.
Yeah.
You remember do you remember in season 1 where they find the cave, our not great cave set? And the skeletons, Hurley discovers the skeletons.
I do, Adam and Eve. I remember.
Adam and Eve. There was talk early on that Jack and Kate at the end were going to crawl in there and be them.
Right.
Years before. But that idea didn't stick to the creative wall. Whether they were together romantically or not at the time, but that was going to be them. But that's not the way they went. And And I love the work that Evangeline and Matt did in the finale. Like when she comes up, to play that stuff, can be new agey and all-knowing. When like she came up to the car and she's trying to get Jack to come into the church, and she knows what he doesn't know yet, and he's still struggling with it until his father tells him. And he has his blissful reunion with all his friends. Which was totally improvised, by the way, when I shot it. It was great.
Which part was improvised?
Well, I'll tell you. But, I mean, the way Evie played all that stuff was just brilliant and subtle, and there was a twinkle in her eye, but not too much. It was so subtle and beautiful. And when I did the church scene, like the raft scene, the goodbye raft scene, when they were all hugging each other and talking, I said, guys, I'm going to shoot a documentary of you guys saying goodbye. And then I walked around with 2 handheld cameras. I said, just say goodbye to who you want to say goodbye to. There were certain moments that were written, like Charlie gives the bottle with the notes, or Charlie is handed the bottle with the notes, and stuff like that. But I'm going back to the church scene. But I'm just saying, the way I shot that scene was just we floated around with cameras and picked up what seemed like spontaneous moments. And I knew I wanted to do the church scene the same. And a lot of those actors hadn't seen each other in a few years.
Right. Because you had all of the characters who had died back and everything.
Yeah. So I said, guys, it's your party. Just greet each other. And then I couldn't get them to shut up. And all they were doing was talking and playing. And I said, okay, there's certain moments I need. So Hurley, go over there and give Jack a hug and da-da-da-da-da, and all this stuff. Hurley was around. But there were certain things. But we did shoot it, except for certain moments that I had to set up in a totally spontaneous documentary way, so it really felt like you were there, which I think was a good choice and special.
I think so. That explains a lot in my mind about that scene, because they all seem so happy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's what to me is amazing about it. I know that's what's supposed to be happening, that they're all finding each other before
I mean,
moving
wouldn't you
on.
Wish that?
Of course I would.
Yeah, everybody would.
I would wish it. I don't know that I believe it, but I wish it.
right. No, I know.
It's a powerful. It's definitely a powerful vision of what might be.
It's definitely the positive side of that vision, because we know the other sides, and I certainly don't think, there's fires of hell and pitchforks, but the Woody Allen, abyss of blackness also seems like, who knows? It could be, and but we don't get to know that.
I just was listening to Jack talk. I'm still amazed that Evangeline Lilly had never acted before being on this show. Because he's totally right. She kills it, and those scenes in the finale he references where, she knows what's going on and Jack doesn't. And I thought he was totally right. She has that twinkle in her eye that, you so badly want to know what she knows, but you're there with Jack's perspective and he doesn't. So I think she does a great job.
I do appreciate in the finale that Jack doesn't know anything, because so much of the show is Jack knowing everything, or like needing to know everything. And I appreciate that they turn the tables on him just circumstantially in the finale. That's refreshing.
It is. And that also reminds me, since we're talking about the finale and the end, that I do want to, the stuff about Adam and Eve in the cave, I don't care a lot about the whole, did they or did they not know what was going to happen at the end kind of deal. But I know that while I was watching the show, that the creators of it said on several occasions, when you find out who Adam and Eve are at the end, you'll know that we knew what we were doing all along. That's definitely something I remember hearing.
Really?
Yeah, and clearly it's just that's not the case, and Jack just kind of said that. It's they thought about maybe it was Jack and Kate. And I'm not complaining or criticizing too much. I really don't care that much, but it is interesting to me that they set up this big mystery with Adam and Eve in the cave, and then obviously had to figure out who that was going to be, because that's not something you could really let slide.
You do feel as you go on that they started some threads that they kind of let go of.
And I do feel like we're going to talk about the finale every week.
Yes.
I think it's impossible to talk about any episode of Lost Now without talking about the finale and how it ends. But hopefully you're getting spoiled week in, week out.
Okay, that wraps Season 1, Episode 3, Tabula Rasa. Thanks for coming back. Thank you very much to those of you who joined us last week for the pilot, and we do hope even more of you will be around for Walkabout, which we're going to watch for next week.
Again, once you've watched Walkabout, please send us your hot take. We want to hear from you. 954-6-DHARMA. Yes, it's a phone number with Dharma in it. It's very exciting.
Our theme music is called Just a Blip. It's by Andy G. Cohen.
You can also follow us on Twitter at The Hatch Podcast, and I want to thank the Twitter user whose name is Michael Lucero, who sent us a correction. We referenced Jacob and the young man in black playing backgammon. It was actually a game called Senate. Our apologies.
As I have just learned, Senate is a board game that dates to ancient Egypt, which has been found in tombs of Egyptian kings. Thank you for that. We are also on Facebook, facebook.com/thehatchpodcast. We would love it if you could rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, etc., etc. That helps more people find the show, or so they say. And we are so looking forward to coming back to you next week.
Thanks for listening, and namaste.